I've never been the kind of guy to suspect my wife Emily of cheating. We'd been together for 5 years, and honestly, I thought we were solid. She could be a bit bitchy, always snapping at me for little things, acting like the world owed her something. But I figured that was just her personality. Still, there were little signs I ignored. She started working later than usual, was more secretive with her phone, and whenever I asked about her day, she'd brush me off with some excuse about how busy she was. Things started feeling off a few months ago, but I chalked it up to stress. I was busy with my podcast, a passion project I'd been pouring myself into, and she wasn't exactly supportive sometimes. Still, she always had a way of making me feel like I was overthinking. But then, a few weeks ago, I noticed an inconsistency I couldn't ignore. It all started with a strange smell. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it was like a mix of perfume and some other scent that didn't belong to her. I'd smell it after she'd come home, and it would linger in the air in a way that made me uneasy. I also noticed her phone was more locked than usual. She'd be glued to it, typing away, hiding the screen whenever I came into the room. She'd slip it into her purse or hide it in her pocket. Not exactly suspicious on its own, but combined with her recent attitude, it felt like a warning sign. One night, she stayed out late with her friends. I didn't think much of it at first, but her explanation about just girls' night felt vague, like she was trying to hide something. She was bitchy when I pressed her about it, snapping at me to stop being paranoid. That's when I started noticing the little things, her being overly defensive, avoiding eye contact, and canceling our plans at the last minute without any good reason. I was getting more and more paranoid, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Still, deep down, I knew something was wrong. Then came the day I found the evidence I wasn't prepared for. It was a lazy Sunday, and I was cleaning out some old boxes in the closet. I came across her handbag, which I usually never go near. I opened it absent-mindedly, expecting to find some receipts or maybe her lipstick. Instead, I found a tiny folded paper tucked in one of the compartments. I unfolded it out of curiosity, and my stomach sank. It was a text message thread, and I couldn't believe what I was reading. It was her talking to some guy, who wasn't just some friend but clearly someone she'd been sneaking around with. The messages were explicit, filled with flirtatious comments and plans to meet up. The guy's name was Alex, an acquaintance she'd mentioned once or twice but never cared to introduce me to. The messages said things like, "Can't wait to see you tonight," and "Love the way you make me feel," and this was all happening while she was supposedly out with her friends. My heart felt like it stopped. I kept reading, trying to process the betrayal while my mind raced through all the moments I missed, all the times she lied about where she was. I wanted to yell, to scream, but I was frozen. My mind was spinning, trying to figure out what I did wrong, why she would do this. I felt stupid for trusting her, stupid for not seeing it coming. I had always thought she was just a bitchy woman with a sharp tongue, but now I knew she was capable of lying, cheating, sneaking behind my back with some guy I thought I could trust. It hurt more than I can put into words. I felt angry, betrayed, and utterly numb all at once. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't ready for what would come next. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to the messages I found, replaying every little moment where I might have missed the signs. I kept thinking about how she had lied to my face so many times, and now I had proof, concrete proof, that she'd been unfaithful. It was like a punch to the gut, but also a strange relief. At least now I didn't have to wonder anymore. I knew the truth. The next morning, I decided I had to confront her. I didn't want to do it in a heated way. I wanted to hear her out, to see her reaction. I waited until she was in the kitchen, making her usual bitchy comments about how I was poking around in her things and how I was crazy for suspecting her. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her I knew everything. Her face twisted into that familiar smirk, the one she always used when she thought she was winning an argument. "Oh, really? You found some stupid little message. Congratulations. You must think you're so clever, but you don't know the whole story," she snapped, crossing her arms. Her tone was defensive, but underneath I could hear something else, nervousness maybe. She tried to laugh it off, brushing past me, saying, "You're overthinking it as usual. You jump to conclusions. Typical." I didn't let her brush me off. I kept my voice steady, telling her I knew about Alex, about how she'd been sneaking around, lying to my face for who knows how long. Her eyes narrowed, and that's when she got really bitchy, throwing out excuses like she was on the defense. Oh, that. It's nothing, just some stupid flirtation. It doesn't mean anything. He's just a friend, just a friend. I interrupted, feeling my blood boil. You're lying, you've been sleeping with him, haven't you? I saw the messages, the explicit ones. How could you do this? How could you cheat on me with some guy you just met in a bar? She scoffed, rolling her eyes. It's none of your business. You're just jealous because I don't want to be bored out of my mind with your stupid podcast. Maybe if you paid more attention to me instead of recording idiots talking about their dumb ideas, I wouldn't feel the need to find excitement elsewhere. That hit a nerve, but I stayed calm. I told her I'd had enough. I told her I'd seen everything, and I didn't want to be with someone who lied and cheated and treated me like I was invisible. Her face was a mixture of anger and contempt as she spat back. You're just insecure. You think I'm some slut who can't control herself. Well, maybe I am, but at least I'm honest about what I want. That's when I realized she had no intention of owning up or even caring about what she'd done. She was blaming me for her own betrayal. That's when I decided I needed to get out, to take some control back from her. I told her I was done, that I wanted her out of the house and I wasn't going to be her fool anymore. She laughed then, that nasty, dismissive laugh that made my stomach turn, and stormed out. She said she'd be back, that she'd make me see she's not a bad person, but I knew better. I knew she was just a bitch who thought she could get away with anything. After she left, I just sat on the couch, staring at the door, feeling a mix of relief and rage. I kept replaying what she said, how she called me insecure, how she dismissed everything we had. It was like I was finally waking up from a nightmare I didn't even realize I was in. I felt hurt, yeah, but mostly I was pissed that someone I loved could do something so selfish, so cruel. It was like my entire world had been turned upside down in a matter of hours. I knew I had to do something. I needed to figure out what to say, what to do next. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly, pretty damn stupid for trusting her so blindly. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. This was the end of the line. I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. I'd have to pick up the pieces and figure out how to move on without her. And that's what I was going to do. The days that followed were a blur of anger, sadness, and a kind of numbness I couldn't shake. I spent hours staring at the wall, trying to process everything, trying to understand how I'd been so blindsided. I kept telling myself I should have seen it coming, that I should have noticed the signs earlier, but honestly, I just felt stupid. How could I miss it? How could I trust her so blindly when she was clearly capable of lying about something so huge? I didn't want to jump into anything rash, though. I needed a plan, a way to make her regret what she'd done, to teach her a lesson she wouldn't forget. I started thinking about how I could get back at her, how I could make her see she couldn't treat people like that and get away with it. It wasn't just about her cheating. It was about her manipulation, her lies, how she played me for a fool. One idea was to confront her again, but I knew that wouldn't work. Emily was a master at spinning stories, twisting things around until she was the victim. So I decided to do something different. I wanted to make her realize she'd lost something real, the trust, the respect, the life we built together. I started meticulously gathering evidence, not just the messages but things she'd hidden, small lies she'd told that pointed to her sneaking around. I also knew I needed leverage. I wasn't just going to walk away empty-handed. I wanted her to feel the pain of losing everything, to see how much she'd screwed up. So I made a plan to expose her publicly if necessary. I wanted her to understand that her actions had consequences, that she couldn't just cheat and lie without facing the fallout. Meanwhile, she kept trying to contact me, calling and texting, acting like nothing had happened. She'd send those snippy messages, accusing me of being paranoid or jealous. She even tried to blame me for her cheating, saying I'd neglected her, that I was too focused on my stupid podcast. I saw right through her games, but I didn't respond. I knew engaging with her would only feed her ego. One afternoon, she showed up at the house unexpectedly, looking all smug like she was expecting a hero welcome. She knocked on the door, and when I opened it, she just stared at me with that bitchy smile. "Look, I know you're mad, but we need to talk," she said, acting like she was the injured party. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "You're not worth my time, just leave. I've had enough of your bullshit." She tried to argue, to make some bullshit excuse about how she loved me and how she'd change, but I just shut her down. I told her I knew the truth, and I wasn't interested in her lies anymore. That was when I realized I needed to end this once and for all. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay while she was out there screwing some guy I once admired and trusted, Alex, the podcast guest who I introduced her to in the first place. That hurt more than I can say. Knowing she was out having sex with someone I looked up to, someone I'd spoken to about my dreams, cut deep. I decided I'd do something she'd never see coming. She thought she could manipulate me into staying, into forgiving her, but I was done playing nice. I started planning my next move, something that would hit her where it hurt. I wasn't just going to dump her and walk away. I wanted her to feel the sting of losing everything she cared about. I wanted her to regret the day she ever crossed me. In the meantime, I kept my distance. Blocked her on everything, changed my locks, and started focusing on myself. I needed to heal, but I also needed to make her regret betraying me so blatantly. I didn't want her to think she got away with it, that she could just cheat and lie and then walk back into my life like nothing happened. No, this was going to be a lesson she wouldn't forget, and I was going to make sure she knew it. The plan slowly took shape in my mind. I knew I couldn't confront her directly again without risking her twisting everything around or denying even more. I had to be strategic. I started digging deeper, going through her phone when she wasn't looking, pulling up old messages and checking her social media accounts. I needed a full picture of what she'd been up to, who she'd been talking to, where she'd been sneaking off to, all the little lies she'd spun. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about getting closure. I found out she'd not only been sleeping with Alex but also meeting him in different places, sometimes even staying overnight. The thought of her in some hotel with him behind my back, it made my blood boil. She'd always acted like she was better than everyone, that she was too good for the little life we shared. And now I saw she was just a cheat, a liar, a manipulator. I decided I needed to make her feel the cold aftermath of her actions, to make her see what she's losing. I reached out to some of her friends, the ones who might still have a shred of decency, and subtly hinted that I knew about her affair. I didn't want to blow everything up instantly, but I wanted to plant the seed that her reputation might be in danger if she didn't come clean. I wanted her to realize she'd crossed a line and that I wasn't the kind of guy to let her get away with it. Meanwhile, I kept my distance, but I also started gathering evidence I could use if I needed to take things a step further. I made copies of the messages, took screenshots of her social media activity, and even installed a little recording device in the house that would pick up her conversations if she slipped up. I wasn't planning to blackmail her, at least, not yet, but I wanted to keep my options open. It wasn't just about hurting her. It was about making her understand she'd lost control of everything. I wanted her to feel vulnerable, to see that her lies wouldn't hold up forever. I knew she was bitchy and manipulative, but I also knew she was scared she'd be exposed. And that was the key. I wanted her to feel the fear, the regret, the realization that her actions would have consequences. One night she came home late again, smelling of perfume and exhaustion, acting like she'd just been out for a quick drink. But I could see it in her eyes. She was nervous, tense. I didn't say a word. Instead, I sat on the couch, pretending to watch TV while she tried to act natural. Inside, I was calm, plotting my next move. I knew I had her cornered, that the truth was only a matter of time before she cracked. I started sending her subtle messages, hints that I knew everything without outright revealing my hand. I wanted her to feel like she was losing her grip, like I was one step ahead. I figured if I could scare her just enough, she'd start to unravel. And that's exactly what I wanted, her to realize she was no longer in control here. I also made a point to stay busy. I threw myself into my podcast, working harder than ever, pouring my pain into my work. It was my way of coping, but it also served as a distraction. I didn't want her to think she could manipulate me anymore or make me feel small. I was reclaiming my power, piece by piece. The main thing I kept telling myself was that I deserved better. I deserved someone who wouldn't lie to me, cheat on me, and treat me like I was invisible. Emily had shown her true colors, and I wasn't going to be the fool who stayed blind. I was ready to fight for myself, ready to make her regret ever crossing that line. I could feel it building up inside me, the need to finally put an end to this mess, to show her she couldn't get away with it. And when I finally did, she'd wish she'd never messed with me. The moment I decided to finally confront her, I knew I had to do it on my terms. No more sneaking around, no more hiding evidence, no more pretending everything was normal. I wanted her to see that I knew everything, that I was in control now. I waited until she was out of the house for a few hours, then I set my plan in motion. I got a friend to come over and help me with the last piece of the puzzle. We set up a small hidden camera in the living room, aimed at the spot where she usually sat, and I made sure it was recording her every move. I wanted her to slip up, to say something she couldn't take back. That night I waited for her to come home, feeling a strange mixture of anticipation and dread. I wasn't sure how she'd react, angry, defensive, maybe even more bitchy, but I was ready for whatever came. When she finally walked into the house, she was acting all confident, like she'd gotten away with everything. But I kept my calm and said, "We need to talk. I've seen enough, Emily. I know about Alex, about everything. I've got the evidence." Her face froze for a moment, then her eyes narrowed. She tried to act surprised, but I could see the flicker of guilt behind her fake smile. "Oh, you found out," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Big deal. So what if I saw him? It doesn't mean I love him or anything. We're just having fun." She tried to brush it off, but I was done listening to her lies. I pulled out my phone and played the recordings I'd made. Her voice, her saying all those things about how much she loved him, how she couldn't wait to see him again, the way she'd sneaked out that night to meet him. Her face went pale. She looked like she was about to explode. "You're crazy," she spat. "You're just jealous. You always were jealous of everyone I talked to." I shook my head. "No, Emily, I'm not jealous. I'm furious. Furious that you lied to me for months, that you cheated with some guy I brought into your life, that you used me. I thought we had something real, but I guess I was just fooling myself. You've been a bitch the whole time, and I finally see what you really are." She started crying then, fake tears streaming down her face, trying to manipulate me. "You don't understand," she sobbed. "You're so insecure. I love you, but I just needed some excitement. It's not what you think. I was just lonely, that's all. Alex doesn't mean anything." I didn't buy it. I'd heard enough. I told her she could pack her shit and leave. I told her that I'd be better off without her lies, her manipulations, her cheating, that I was done. I was tired of her acting like she was the victim, like she was somehow entitled to do whatever she wanted. I looked her in the eyes and told her she'd ruined everything, our trust, our relationship, whatever we had, and I meant it. As she packed her things, she kept throwing tantrums, calling me paranoid, calling me names, trying to guilt-trip me into changing my mind. But I was firm. I knew this was the end. I knew I'd never trust her again, not after everything I'd uncovered. I told her she was a bitch, a liar, and a cheat, and I was finally done playing her game. When she finally left, I felt a strange mix of relief and heartbreak. I knew I'd be okay, better even, but the sting of betrayal hurt deep. I kept thinking about all the years I'd given her, all the times I'd trusted her, only to find out she was just using me. That night I sat alone in my quiet house, feeling more alone than I ever had, but also strangely free. It was over. I had finally taken back control, and I wasn't going to let her ruin me anymore. The days after she left were the hardest, but also the most clarifying. I spent hours just sitting in the silence of the house, trying to piece myself back together. Every little thing reminded me of her perfume in the air, her voice in my head, the way she used to snap at me for the tiniest things. But I also started to see things more clearly. The betrayal had opened my eyes to how much I'd been blinded by love, by hope that she'd change, that she'd realize what she threw away. I won't lie, it hurt like hell. Trust is fragile, and losing it feels like losing a part of yourself. But with each passing day, I felt stronger. I realized I'd spent too long trying to hold onto something that was never truly there. The love I thought I had, the future I planned, all of it shattered by one bitchy, manipulative woman who thought she could cheat her way out of her mistakes. Looking back, I learned a lot. I should have seen the signs, but I was too blinded by my own hopes. I was naive to think she was just a bitchy wife, not someone capable of this level of deceit. And I learned that sometimes you have to cut your losses, no matter how much it hurts, to protect yourself from further damage. I also learned that revenge isn't always about hurting the other person. It's about taking control of your own life again. I wanted her to know she couldn't play with my trust and get away with it. I wanted her to understand that her lies and cheating had consequences. And I think I succeeded because I no longer feel the anger and confusion that once consumed me. Now I focus on myself. I put my energy into my podcast, my friends, my passions. I'm rebuilding what I thought I lost. I'm learning to trust again, but this time more carefully. The pain of betrayal will always be there, but it's made me wiser, stronger. So, if there's one thing I'd say to anyone reading this and going through something similar, don't ignore the signs. Don't let hope blind you to what's real. And most importantly, don't be afraid to walk away from someone who doesn't value you. Because at the end of the day, your happiness and self-respect are what matter most. I may have lost someone I loved, but I gained clarity, strength, and a new understanding of what I deserve. And that's worth more than any apology or fake excuse she ever offered.